Welcome to Chronicles History Channel, where the legends of the past come to life. From ruthless rulers to legendary conquerors, we uncover the stories that shaped history and the myths that haunt it. Now step into the shadows of time as we introduce the central figure of today's tale. They call him Vlad the Impaler, a name whispered in fear and etched into history. A ruler, a warrior, and a man whose legacy blurs the line between hero and monster. Let Vlad himself guide you through his story, a journey of power, fear, and blood. Subscribe and join us on this unforgettable adventure.
They call me a monster, a demon, a ruler so cruel that armies fled at the mere sight of my work. But tell me this. What would you do to protect your people, your throne, your name? I'm Vlad the Impaler, Prince of Wallachia, and my story is darker than the legends they whisper in fear. Dracula, you say? That name was stolen from me, twisted into tales of vampires and monsters. But the truth? The truth is far bloodier. Let me take you back to where it all began. My rise, my fall, and the path I carved through betrayal and bloodshed. In the 1400s, my land, Wallachia, was caught in the jaws of two empires, the mighty Ottomans to the south and the Kingdom of Hungary to the north. We were a kingdom of survival, where alliances could turn to betrayals with the flick of a dagger. My father, Vlad II Dracula, was a knight of the Order of the Dragon, sworn to defend Christianity from Ottoman invasion. He wore that emblem with pride, but it brought as many enemies as it did allies. I was born into a world of treachery, a world where loyalty was a fragile thing, easily broken. War and betrayal shaped me from the beginning. My father's throne was powerful, but it made us targets, and then came the choice that would change everything. When I was just 11 years old, my father handed me and my younger brother, Radu, over to the Ottoman Sultan. Hostages, he called us, a cruel bargain to keep his fragile alliance intact. Imagine being torn from your home and sent into the hands of your enemies. Survival was their game, and I learned to play it well. My brother Radu adapted, charmed his captors, even gained their favor. But I endured their mockery, their lashings, their attempts to break me. Each insult was fuel, each scar a reminder of what I would become. They thought they could tame me, but captivity forged my hatred, my strength, and my resolve. From the heart of their empire I returned, not a broken boy, but a ruler shaped by fire and vengeance. I am Vlad the Impaler, a man shaped by betrayal, hardened by pain, and destined to strike fear into the hearts of my enemies. But this is only the beginning of my tale. Next, I will show you the horrors of my early life, the choices I made, the blood I spilled, the revenge that shaped my legacy. Are you ready to know the truth? Picture this, a boy of 11, forced to ride into the unknown. Each step closer to my father's enemies felt like a noose tightening around me. My father called it diplomacy. I called it betrayal. But that ride was only the beginning. In 1442, my father, Vlad II Dracula, ruler of Wallachia, made a choice to save his throne. He handed me and my brother Radu to the Sultan. Hostages, he said, to guarantee peace, but all I felt was the sting of being cast away.
You're just going to hand us over to them? Do you even care?
This is not abandonment, Vlad. This is survival. For you, for Radu, and for Wallachia.
Survival, he called it. But to me, it was a lesson in treachery. Even at that age, I swore I would never again let anyone have that kind of power over me. The Ottoman court wasn't a place of peace. It was a place of chains. My brother Radu bent to their will easily, earning their trust. I didn't. My defiance became my weapon. but it came at a price.
Your brother understands how to obey, boy. Why don't you?
Because I am not your servant. I am a prince.
They tried to break me, beat me, humiliate me, but every insult only sharpened my resolve. I watched them, learned from them. Every scar they gave me became a mark of my strength. By the time I was a teenager, I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing. I studied their weaknesses, their arrogance. They thought I was their prisoner. They had no idea I was becoming their nightmare.
Strike harder, boy. Prove you're not as weak as you look.
One day you'll see how strong I am.
They tried to tame me, but they only forged my hatred. My chains didn't weaken me. They strengthened me. And when the time came to break free, I would show them the storm they had created. When I finally escaped, I returned to a homeland in chaos. But I wasn't the boy they had sent away. I was a weapon waiting to be unleashed. Stay with me as I reveal how I turned chaos into my power. When I returned to Wallachia, I didn't find peace. I found chaos. My homeland was torn apart, my people broken under the weight of betrayal and invasion. If I was going to reclaim my throne, I needed more than a crown. I needed fear. The Wallachia I returned to in 1448 was a kingdom in ruins. My father's castle, once a symbol of strength, lay in decay. The boyars who betrayed him now held the reins of power, while the Ottomans loomed from the south. Rival claimants circled like vultures. To rise, I had to fight enemies on every front.
You think the people will follow you? A prince who spent his life as a pawn of the Ottomans?
They will follow me because they fear me. And you. You will too. Diplomacy was a fool's game in Wallachia. I couldn't trust alliances, and I couldn't rely on the boyars. Instead, I turned to fear, a weapon sharper than any blade. With a small army loyal to me alone, I began my campaign to reclaim what was mine. Our enemies outnumber us. They have wealth and power, but what they lack is what we have. Resolve.
Resolve, my lord, against their sheer numbers. How can we stand?
By striking hard and striking fast. Fear is our greatest weapon.
Let them see the price of defiance, my lord. We will show them.
Good. Then let's make them remember who we are. I didn't just fight. I made them remember me. My strategies were calculated, my brutality deliberate. With each victory, my enemies grew weaker, and my legend grew darker. When I reclaimed my throne, I knew it wouldn't last unless I dealt with the snakes among my own people. The boyars who betrayed my father needed to be taught a lesson no one would forget.
My lord, please, we are loyal to you.
Loyalty? You speak of loyalty after betraying my father. Your fate will remind others of the cost of treachery. They thought they could conspire against me as they had against my father. But I showed them what treachery costs. Fear would keep the others in line. Under my rule, Wallachia became a place of order. A golden goblet sat in the town square, free for anyone to use, and yet no one dared steal it. Such was the power of fear. Fear had become my greatest weapon, but I knew it wouldn't be enough on its own. A storm was brewing, and I would need more than fear to survive it. Next, I'll show you my most infamous act, the Forest of the Impaled. It wasn't just a warning to my enemies. It was a spectacle of terror that would seal my name in history. Are you ready to face the truth? In 1462, Sultan Mehmed II marched into my homeland with over 100,000 men. He thought Wallachia would fall easily, like so many others before me. But I had no intention of fighting him on his terms. I had a different kind of battle in mind, a battle fought with fear. I knew I couldn't face Mehmed's army in open battle. They were too many, too strong. But strength means nothing when the mind is broken. Fear is a weapon sharper than any sword, and I wielded it with precision.
My lord, is this truly necessary? There must be another way to stop them.
This is the only way. Fear will do what swords cannot. Let the Sultan see what awaits him if he dares to press on. As Mehmed's army marched deeper into Wallachia, they found nothing but ruin. Villages burned, wells poisoned, crops destroyed. I left them no food, no shelter, no hope, only death.
My Sultan, this is unthinkable. Thousands of people left as a grim warning to all who enter.
Unthinkable, yes. Vlad Dracula wants us to turn back. Perhaps we should listen.
I created the Forest of the Impaled as a message, a wall of death to stop even the most determined invader. Over 20,000 bodies lined the stakes, stretching for miles. It was an act of cruelty, yes, but it was also a masterstroke of strategy.
The Sultan is pulling back. Your plan worked, my lord, but at what cost? The people will never see you as a savior.
I don't need their love. I need their obedience. The Sultan retreated, his army shattered by what they saw. Wallachia was safe, for now. But safety came at a cost. The people feared me as much as my enemies did, and that fear became my greatest weapon. Wallachia was mine, but betrayal and revenge were never far away. In the next chapter, I'll show you how my reign of terror led to my greatest challenge and my fall. No man, no matter how strong or feared, escapes fate. My reign had kept Wallachia in order, but enemies lurked in every shadow. Betrayal is a weapon, and mine was waiting to strike. By 1462, I had reached the height of my power, but the war with the Ottoman Empire had drained my kingdom. The boyars I once terrified now saw a chance to turn on me. They would learn too late that treachery always comes at a cost.
Welcome back, my lord. Wallachia stands strong under your leadership.
Spare me the pleasantries. I know treachery when I see it. My forces were exhausted, my kingdom weakened. I turned to Hungary for aid, believing I could trust my allies. But instead of help, I was betrayed. King Matthias Corvinus, fearing my strength, had me imprisoned.
Your time is over, Impaler. The king has no need for monsters like you.
A monster is what you made me. Remember that when your enemies close in. For over a decade, I sat in chains. But even behind bars, my legend grew. Stories of my rule spread like wildfire. To some, I was a hero. To others, a monster. And to all, a name they would never forget.
Why do you still fight, Impaler? No one will remember you.
They will remember. Fear has a longer life than any man. When I was released, I reclaimed my throne. But Wallachia was a land of blood and betrayal, and I marched into my final battle, knowing it might be my last. Betrayed by my own men, I fell in 1476. My head was sent to the Sultan, but my name would not die with me. Even in death, I remained. Not as flesh and blood, but as fear, a shadow cast over history. Did I truly die that day? Or does my legacy still walk the night? Next, we'll reflect on what I left behind, the terror, the myths, and the truths that haunt history. Dracula. That name wasn't mine, but it clings to me like a shadow. They say I was no man, but a monster, a vampire who fed on the blood of the innocent. Or was I something worse? In the darkness of history, truth and legend blur, leaving a tale as chilling as the myths.
My lord, they say death cannot claim you, that you rise again with every sunset. Is it true?
Death? Death serves me, and so will you. They tell stories about me, stories of a creature of the night, born in the pages of Bram Stoker's book. But I was no vampire. I didn't drink blood to survive. I used fear. My cruelty wasn't born of the supernatural. It was deliberate, calculated, and all too real.
The Ottomans call you a monster, my lord. They whisper of a demon who cannot die.
Let them. A mortal man inspires rebellion, but a demon keeps the peace. Bram Stoker took my name, my legacy, and turned me into a monster of Gothic fiction, a predator of the night. But my true terror needed no fangs. I ruled through fear, feeding on the minds of my enemies and crushing their spirits.
Are you the devil?
The devil fears me, remember that. They replaced me with a myth, a creature of fantasy. But ask yourself this, what's more terrifying? A vampire that never was, or a man who did the unthinkable in the name of power? Ruthless ruler, fearless warrior, bloodthirsty tyrant. These are the names they've given me. My legacy is as divided as the lands I fought to defend. But how will you remember me? As the man I was, or the myth I've become? After my death, my story took on a life of its own. To some, I was a hero, a protector who stood against overwhelming odds to save my people. To others, I was a monster whose name would forever be spoken in fear.
You cannot deny that Vlad saved Wallachia from falling to the Ottomans. Without his tactics, their armies would have swept through unopposed.
At what cost? His so-called tactics included impaling thousands, poisoning his own lands, and ruling with fear. That's not heroism, it's barbarism.
My name became whatever they needed it to be. To my allies, I was a shield against the Ottomans. To my enemies, I was terror itself. Over time, I stopped being a man and became a legend. And from that legend, a monster was born.
They call him a hero, but is that the truth?
Hero or not, his spirit still walks these lands. They say if you're foolish enough to enter the forest at night, you'll hear him whisper, "Obey or perish."
They turned me into something eternal, a creature of fiction. The name Dracula, drawn from my own, now belongs to a myth. But tell me this, what's more haunting, a vampire of imagination, or the man who inspired it all? Love me or fear me, my name will not be forgotten. I was both hero and villain, man and monster. And in the end, I ask you, what separates one from the other? They call me Vlad the Impaler. To some, I was a hero, a defender of Wallachia who stood unyielding against the tide of invaders. To others, I was a tyrant, a man whose cruelty knew no bounds. The truth? Perhaps I was both. Perhaps I was neither. Centuries have passed, yet my story lingers. My name, my deeds, my legacy, they have transcended time, becoming something greater, something darker. What I did for Wallachia. My methods were brutal, yes. But can survival ever be achieved without sacrifice? Now I ask you, was I a necessary evil in an age of chaos? Or am I nothing more than the monster they made me out to be? The answer, perhaps, lies in the shadows. And if you wish to uncover more tales of power, fear, and history's darker truths, stay with these storytellers. They weave the legends of the past into something unforgettable. Like, share, and subscribe. And as you explore, remember this. Beware the darkness.
They call him Vlad the Impaler, a man of terror, of cruelty, a ruler who stopped at nothing to defend his land. But he was only one piece of a much larger game. The real power, the force he feared, was mine. At the age of 21, I achieved what others thought impossible, the fall of Constantinople, the gateway between worlds. My ambition turned dreams into reality, and my strength built an empire that reshaped history. They called me Mehmed the Conqueror. Join the next chapter to hear my story, the tale of a sultan whose vision and power reshaped the course of history.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of history. If you're ready for more tales of ambition, power, and the figures who shaped our world, subscribe to X Chronicles History channel. Like, share, and stay tuned for the next chapter of this incredible story.